Case managers participate in the Foster Care Review Board hearings, provide reports to the Foster Care Review Board with status updates on the case to be considered in their review hearings. Our case managers recognize that the Foster Care Review Board is one of many entities that provide some level of oversight to the work of CPS and decision-making in CPS. Our experienced case managers become very comfortable with the many hearings, staffings, and meetings that they participate in, including the Foster Care Review Board. The recommendations of the Foster Care Review Board are taken very seriously, and efforts are made to address those recommendations as thoroughly and as promptly as possible. Oftentimes, the recommendations require that CPS work across systems, for example, to work with the school system to ensure that appropriate services are provided to a child, or to work with the behavioral health agencies, again, to ensure that the needed services are provided. Every case is different, and certainly some recommendations are more easily implemented than others. But ultimately, CPS will make its utmost effort to ensure that problems are resolved and that recommendations are followed up on. The Foster Care Review Board helps to play a very important role in the checks and balances of the system to ensure ultimately that the needs of the child are met. That's a very, very important role. The Foster Care Review Board, in a sense, really provides advocacy on a case-by-case basis for each child who's in the system. And of course, by involving all of the parties on a case in the review process, it helps to ensure that all of the perspectives are included in the review process, and that makes for a more holistic review, and ultimately that's definitely going to benefit the child and the family. Another true benefit that we realize from the role that the Foster Care Review Board plays is, in addition to the reviews on each individual case and the difference that is made for each individual child who's involved in the foster care system, we can also take the overall findings, roll them up, and look for trends. This can help us to identify systemic issues and help to make improvements in different aspects of the system as well.
The information is gathered from various parties. Child Protective Service case managers provide that to the board. There are also quite a few interested parties that attend the review or can participate telephonically. And the board members receive that information prior to the review, and they review the information, they develop questions, and then at the actual review hearing, they have the opportunity to ask questions so that they can gather the information that they need to provide and make appropriate recommendations. We invite as many people as we can to the reviews. We have biological parents that are invited, foster parents, CPS case managers, attorneys, probation officers, anyone who has knowledge of the child and who is interested in their welfare. We also invite the children, and we particularly encourage children who are 12 and over to attend, because it's very important to get their perspective and to hear from them so that we understand what's going on in their lives. The boards try to make it convenient for parties to attend. We know that not everyone can appear in person, so we have a system where they can appear telephonically if they'd like. They can also provide a written statement. And then for the youth who are in care, they can actually log onto our website and provide a statement via the web if they're more comfortable doing that.
You've been with the Foster Care Review Board system since its inception.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So tell us a little bit about how all that started.
Back in the late 70s, it was started actually out of the legislature, and they wanted to have sort of a check and balance system on children who were in dependent foster care. There was literally children who would sort of get lost in the system. They would come into the system and they'd never have a court review. They'd go unchecked for a long period of time. I think there was one other board in existence back in South Carolina at the time. We used that as a model, much as many states use Arizona as a model now. And we created the Foster Care Review Board in 1978 by legislation. I got recruited by a chap named David Byers. I had been chairman of a branch YMCA, and David was actually our director. And he came to me one day and said, well, I'm going to apply for this job. And I said, okay. And he said, I don't think I'll get it, but he sure did. And it wasn't too long after that, he called me up and said, Bruce, we need some gender balance on these boards. We've got a lot of ladies volunteering. Can you represent? You know, I know you're a contractor and all, and maybe make your own schedule. And I said, sure, David, I'll do that for a while. Well, that's about 31 years ago. So it kind of gets in your blood.
Now, you've been involved with the Foster Care Review Board for just a few years, and talk a little bit of how you got involved and some of your experiences getting involved in it.
Well, I first came to serve on the board in April of 2006, but I had originally heard about the Foster Care Review Board when I went through training to become a foster parent. It was covered in our training, but not extensively. But it wasn't until the first time I attended a review board as a foster parent with one of our infants that I began to understand just exactly what it is that the board did. For us, attending as foster parents, it was such a validation. The system is complicated, and the little ones that we were serving have no voice, so we really felt that one of our important jobs was to be an advocate for the foster children that we cared for. And at the Foster Care Review Board, we really felt heard, listened to. And that's what drew me to it. We no longer foster, we just recently surrendered our license. But I began serving while we were still foster parents, and that gave me even more insight.
What was the process that you went through to get on the board? Explain how that works for those that are interested.
Well, you complete an application and wait to hear back from the people who review the application, and then you're assigned a board to come and observe. I didn't realize the day that I observed that they were also observing me. Now, as a member of the board, I realize that we do have some input when someone comes to observe if we think they might be a good fit. And apparently they did think I was a good fit. And I began serving on that board within the next couple months. The training came afterward. Originally I thought that was not a good idea. In retrospect, it was a good idea. I did need to get my feet wet and understand what it is that the board does, what documents we review, what's important to make note of. And then when I went through the training, and I think it was a day and a half at the time, I had valid questions to ask during those training sessions. We're volunteers from the outside without an axe to grind. All we're trying to do is gather the information, look at the plan, see if people are participating, see if there are any gaps in the services, and then report to the judge, who has the awesome responsibility to decide what will happen with these children and what will happen with these families. So I think emphasizing that valuable piece that we are from the outside looking in, but with the authority to review all the documents and help the judge make his decision. When I began on the board, my first real question before I started to serve, because it is a sacrifice of your time, is do the judges really listen to what we say, or are we just spinning our wheels and wasting our time? And I've been reassured time and time again that they do. And I think the format that we use with our 10 questions and our brief outline of the progress in the case probably is a document that he can skim, although I know he reviews the file, and I know that the judges are very thorough in how they look at what's going on. But it does give him a kind of encapsulated view of him or her, an encapsulated view of what's going on.